This video was brought to you by Embedded System Solution, a company composed of like-minded electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists, and whose main goal is assisting our engineering customers, non-engineering customers, and technician level customers with their electrical and computer engineering level and technician level needs. Our customers range everywhere from engineering students to university professors, technicians to engineers, junior engineers to senior engineers. Please feel free to visit us at www.embeddedSystemSolution.com. Again, www.embeddedSystemSolution.com, or better yet, email us at support@embeddedSystemSolution.com. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like. So typically the way it works is the client computer, like in this case the browser. Let's suppose you're Googling yahoo.com, right? And so the client, the HTTP client, the browser, it constructs a frame, right? And technically it's not the application the one that constructs the frame, it's the IPS. But for right now, for simplicity's sake, let's suppose it is the client application, right? And so the client application wants to construct a frame to send this message to another computer, right? In this case, the server computer. Now, the frame consists of a source IP. Don't click away. You know, this is important. I know it's boring, but electrical engineering, network engineering, it's boring as it is a subject. You know, I wish I can, but don't, because I know this is a boring part. But come on, hold on. Okay, so this is how the client constructs a frame, and why is it that it's important to understand port theory, right? And how is it that it might be confusing? Now, the thing about it is, we're going to introduce several subjects at the same time, and unfortunately there's no ands or buts about it. Like, this is one of the reasons why it gets confusing. At the same time, it gets boring, because you have to tangentially like introduce several subjects at the same time. And how is it that you can introduce another subject when you're still introducing? It's like the definition of a word has another word that you do not know, and you have to look up that definition of that word. And imagine it just keeps going. So this is going to be one of those cases. So hopefully you can follow along. But if not, just rewind the video. But this is by far one of the most important sections, the heart of firewall and port theory. So whenever an application, a client application, is constructing a frame, this is the process that it does, right? So the packet, obviously the frame consists of a source IP address and a destination IP address and a source port and a destination port. Again, don't fast forward. It's very important to know this. I guarantee you I'm going to introduce it in a nice way. So anyways, so obviously beforehand, so whenever a client constructs a frame, it's like writing a letter. It's like almost exactly like writing a letter. You have to know the destination, right? Before you even pick up the pen, you have to know who you're sending that letter to. You have to know the address, unless you're just sending it to random people, which you can, obviously, in computer terminology. So in computer networking, that's why I have a little picture of an envelope, you know, because it's almost very similar. So of course, the source address, you would put your IP address, right? 190 in this case, in this example, is 192.168.1.2. Now, in terms of spoofing, you don't necessarily put your IP address. But unbelievably, there's nothing stopping you from putting another IP address. Now, putting your IP address, it makes sense. Right now, I will explain why it makes sense for you to put your IP address, why you should put your IP address, right? But technically speaking, if you wanted to, you could put 192.168.1.32. And nothing is checking to make sure that the frame that you're sending, the IP address that you put as a source IP address, is the IP address of the computer. There's no checks involved. So that's where scamming takes place. So anyways, so I'm going to show you right now the importance of putting your IP address, but at the same time, putting for source IP address, putting your own IP address. But just be aware that you don't have to put your own IP address. Nothing's stopping you. But it is important. But anyways, that's where hacking comes in. And firewall and hacking, you have to go and learn them, because they go hand in hand. That's what hacking's about. So anyways, so when it's constructing the frame, obviously, you know, it puts its IP address, you know, like we mentioned. Now, it also, when it's constructing the frame, it also has to put its port number, its own port number, right? It's not the destination port number, but its own port number. That's what's called source port. So in this case, it's 80, right? And so that's what it fills in for 80. For destination IP address, that's what we were talking about. Before you even pick up the pin, you have to know the destination of the computer that you're sending this packet to. Now, do you have to know the other computer? No, you don't. In fact, you could put the IP address of whatever you want, but does that really make sense? Well, for hacking, it does. But for legitimate reasons, typically you already have a destination computer that you want to communicate with. And so you know the destination IP address. If you're following the rules, you're going to put the destination IP address, the computer that you say, I want to communicate with that computer. So in this case, it's 192.168.1.1, right? But again, that's if you want to send a packet to a specific computer if you're playing by the rules, but you don't necessarily have to. You could put, technically speaking, you could put whatever random IP address you want, and the networking equipment will send it. It will send it. And again, hacking, dangerous, peligroso. So anyways, so in this case, the destination IP address is 192.168.1.1, correct? So that's what you're going to put, right? Because that's where you want the packet to reach, right? And so obviously the destination port, just like the IP address, you also, before the client application construct the frame, it already knows also the port number. Because if you just put the IP address, yeah, the frame's going to reach the intended computer, but there's multiple applications within that computer. And which application does the operating system forward that frame to? The only way that it knows is by the port number. So that's why it's vital that you also put the port number. Otherwise, and plus the networking equipment might drop the packet if it doesn't have all this information, right? But again, just like, the destination IP address, the destination port, technically speaking, you could put whatever you want. There's nothing checking you. Just like writing a letter, the address, there's nothing stopping you from writing it to a random person. And so that's how the client application constructs its frame. But hold on. There's more to this, right? And so it's ready to send the frame, right? It's ready to send the client, in this case, a web server. It's ready to send the, hey, I want this web page, yahoo.com, right? So the frame is ready. It's being sent out of the computer, out of one. Remember, you only have the whole purpose of the computer, the animation that it goes. Notice how it exits. There's only one place to exit the frame, and that would be that little door. And that door represents, or not door, but whatever you want to call it, that door represents the network output, like the Ethernet or the Wi-Fi. There's only one point that it can exit the computer, and that would be it, right? The frame. So just keep that in mind, that everybody shares one single door, and that would be the Ethernet connection, the IPS. It's just one. And so whichever computer wants to construct the frame, it has to send it through there. So anyways, so now the response application. The server receives the packet, and before, unlike the IP, unlike the client, the server really doesn't necessarily know the intended recipient, right? This is completely different. So this is something that you have to visualize. The client application knows everything about the server application, but the server application knows nothing about the client application, nothing. So it's like the client can know the server, but the server can't know the client, and that's kind of funny. Like, imagine like the best way I could think about it is like, think about a rock star, an actor, and think of a person that wants the actor's autograph. The person that wants the autograph knows everything about the actor, but the actor knows nothing about the other person, about the person wanting the autograph, right? And so that presents danger, and that's kind of the way the servers work. They don't know who they're responding to. So the question is, if the server doesn't know who the frame is coming beforehand, then how does it know who to send the response to? So hopefully this is making sense, right? Because this is very important. This is the heart of port theory. Again, the server computer receives the frame, and it's like, because it doesn't know anything, and it can come from anywhere, any computer around the world. The question is, how does the server know who to respond to? Which computer, and of all the computers in the world, or all the computers in the network, how does it know who to respond? Okay, here goes the website for yahoo.com, HTML. The answer is, so it has to construct its own frame, correct? And so there's the frame. Just like the client computer, the server computer also has to construct, and also has a source IP address, destination IP address, source port, and destination port, correct? And so the source IP address, of course, common sense, it's gonna put its own IP address. But again, it doesn't have to. It's not obligated to put its own IP address. It can put whatever IP address it wants. But there's a reason why you want to put your IP address if you're following the rule. There's a reason why you want to put your own IP address. But so in this case, it's 192.168.1.1, correct? Now for the source port, in this case, it's port 80, right? And again, nothing's stopping it from putting another port, but there's a reason why you want to put your port number, But then again, there's nothing stopping it, right, from putting another port number. But if it's following the rules, it's supposed to put its own port number. Now, again, remember how I said that the server does not know who is going to make a request? So the question is, if it's constructing the frame as a response, how does it know who to respond it to? How does it know which computer to send that frame to? Well, the answer is simple. The frame that came in, what the server is going to do, what the IPS on the server side, is going to look at the frame and it's going to plug it out. It's going to look at the source IP address and the source port of the frame that came in from the client computer. That's who it's going to respond to. That's how it knows. So the way it knows is it looks at the frame, the frame that came in, and it uses that information to construct a response frame. So if the destination IP address in this case is going to be 192.168.2, but if the client computer put a different IP address than the server computer, that's what it's going to fill in for the destination, for the destination IP address. So again, it looks at the frame that came in to construct the frame that's coming out. So if the information that's coming in it's wrong, then the frame that's coming out is also wrong. But again, hacking, that's why port and firewall, you must know what's going on. So just keep that in mind, that there's no check, there's no software, there's no application, there's no networking equipment that makes sure that everybody's following the rules. In networking, it's the assumption is made that people are following the rules. And that's why you have network admins that are there to make sure that you are following the rules, because nothing's stopping you from not following the rules. So network admins, firewalls, think about it as police, right? But anybody can break the law. And if you don't have the correct firewall or the correct settings, that's where you get hacking. That's where hacking takes place. So anyways, so again, it uses the frame that came in to construct the response frame. And it looked at the source IP address, and that source IP address from the incoming frame, that's what it uses for destination IP address. So that's what it uses. So it's 192.168.1.2. So again, don't forget, if the client computer put a different IP address, then the response frame is gonna put that IP address. So, but if you're following the rules, and again, for destination port number, it's the same thing. The server computer is gonna look at the frame that came in, and for source IP, for source port, that's what it's going to use for destination port. So the takeaway here is that the server computer, the server application, uses the incoming frame to construct the response frame. So you put 80, of course, right? And that's the response. That's how it sends it. And again, the frame goes through the network, and it could be just your local network. It doesn't have to be a big fancy network, but the frame, that's how it receives its intended recipient, because that's